Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Wednesday, January 8th, 2020. Whew, man. Well, looks like Iran attacked a couple bases in Iraq, U.S. occupied. And they said, fortunately, no casualties officially. Hopefully that's a fact. Plus, even Ayatollah and President Trump don't actually want to go to war. Hopefully it'll just be a ceasefire. Because the truth of the matter is no one's going to win. The ones that will benefit the most will be the banksters. The order. Including the Zionist agents of Israel. Zionist agents. That love this stuff. So we always got to see things a lot broader. Plus, a horrific event that happened in Puerto Rico with the earthquakes. It was a real shame. And sometimes you got government knows best. It turns to crap. Instead of pointing fingers, people got to give them a hand. And, of course, more Second Amendment, anti-Second Amendment laws. Even in Indiana, trying to use the whole thing with red flags. I have a feeling some lobbyist group is trying to use the same documents over and over, which I said is a bill of attainder, violates Article 1, Sections 9 and 10 of the U.S. Constitution, because it violates due process. But those douchebags don't want you to know about it. Even stuff's going on in Kashmir. People are getting tortured, but you don't really hear much. A lot of stuff is happening. World chaos, global jubilee. I may repeat myself a few times, but you have to look at it that way. But whatever you do, folks, stay vigilant. Prepare yourselves at the best of your abilities and share information on the truth that your tyrannical governmental elements don't want you to know. Alright, so I'm going to be talking a few things here, which makes a lot of sense. One of them is, and just trying to get it here. Yeah, there you go. This one here came from the Rutherford Institute. John Whitehead's commentary came out the 7th. It says here, "Come home, America. Stop policing the globe and put an end to the old wars without end." He is a proud veteran that served in the U.S. Army, so he has his merits to speak his mind. "Let it receive that never again will we see the precious young blood of this country to die trying to prop up a corrupt military dictatorship abroad. This is also the time to run away from excessive preoccupation overseas to the rebuilding of our own nation. America must be restored to a proper role in the world, but we can do that only through the recovery of confidence in ourselves. Together, we will call America home to the ideas that nourish us from the beginning, from secrecy and deception in high places. Come home, America, from military spending so wasteful that it weakens our nation. Come home, America." That's by George S. McGovern, a former senator and presidential candidate. I wholeheartedly agree with George S. McGovern, a former senator and presidential candidate who opposed the Vietnam War, about one thing. I'm sick of old men dreaming up wars for young men to die in. It's time to bring our troops home. Bring them home from Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. Bring them home from Germany, South Korea, and Japan. Bring them home from Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Oman. Bring them home from Niger, Chad, and Mali. Bring them home from Turkey, the Philippines, and Northern Australia. That's not what's going to happen, of course. The U.S. military reportedly has more than 1.3 million men and women on active duty, with more than 200,000 of them stationed overseas in nearly every country in the world. These numbers are likely significant higher in keeping with the Pentagon's policy of not fully disclosing where and how many troops are deployed for the sake of operational security and denying the enemy any advantage, as investigative journalist David Vine explains. Sorry about that. Although few Americans realize it, the United States has more bases in foreign lands than any other people, nation, or empire in history. Don't fall for the propaganda. Though America's military forces aren't being deployed abroad to protect our freedoms, guard oil, rather they're being used to guard oil fields, build foreign infrastructures, and protect the financial interests of the corporate elite. In fact, the United States military spends about $81 billion a year just to protect oil supplies around the world. The reach of America's military empire includes to close 800 bases in as many as 160 countries, operating at cost more than $156 billion annually. As Vine reports, even U.S. military resorts and recreational areas in places like the Bavarian Alps and Seoul, South Korea, are bases of a kind worldwide. The military runs more than 170 golf courses. This is how a military empire occupies the globe. Already, American military service people are being deployed to far-flung places in the Middle East and elsewhere in the occupation of the war drum being sounded over Iran. So we will continue. The Iran crisis, salvated over by the neocons since prior to the Iraq War, and manufactured by war hawks who want to jumpstart the next world war, has been a long time coming. Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, they all have done their part to ensure that the military-industrial complex can continue to get rich at taxpayers' expense. Take President Trump, for instance. Despite numerous campaign promises to stop America's endless wars, once elected, Trump has done a complete about-face, deploying greater numbers of troops in the Middle East, ramping up the war rhetoric and padding the pockets of defense contractors. Indeed, Trump is even refusing to withdraw U.S. troops from Iraq in the face of a request from the Iraqi government for us to leave. Obama was no different. He also pledged, if elected, to bring the troops home from Iraq and Afghanistan and reduce America's oversized and overly costly military footprint in the world. Of course, that didn't happen. Yet, while the rationale may keep changing for why American military forces are policing the globe, these wars abroad in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, Yemen, and now Iran aren't making America or the rest of the world any safer, are certainly not making America great again, and are undeniably digging the U.S. deeper into debt. War spending is bankrupting America. Although the U.S. constitutes only 5% of the world's population, America boasts almost 50% of the world's total military expenditure, spending more on the military than the next 19 biggest spending nations combined. In fact, the Pentagon spends more on wars than all 50 states combined spend on health, education, welfare, and safety. The American military-industrial complex has erected an empire unsurpassed in history and its breadth and scope, one dedicated to conducting perpetual warfare throughout the world. Since 2001, the U.S. government has spent more than $4.7 trillion waging its endless wars. Having been co-opted by greedy defense contractors, corrupt politicians, and incompetent government officials, America's expanding military empire is bleeding the country dry at a rate of more than $32 million per hour. In fact, the U.S. government has spent more money every 5 seconds in Iraq than the average American earns a year. Future wars and military exercises wages around the globe are expected to push the total bill upwards of $12 trillion by 2053. Talking about fiscally irresponsible, the U.S. government is spending money it doesn't have on a military empire it can't afford. An investigative journalist, Yuri Friedman, puts it, for more than 15 years now, the United States has been fighting terrorism with a credit card, essentially bankrolling the wars with debt in the form of purchases of U.S. Treasury bonds by U.S.-based entities like pension funds, state and local governments, and by countries like China and Japan. Could we say IMF too, and World Bank? War is not cheap, but it becomes outrageously costly when you factor in government incompetence, fraud, and greedy contractors. Indeed, leading accounting firm concluded that one of the Pentagon's largest agencies can't account for hundreds of millions of dollars worth of spending. Unfortunately, the outlook isn't much better for the spending that can be tracked. A government audit found that defense contractor Boeing has been massively overcharging taxpayers for mundane parts, resulting in tens of millions of dollars in overspending. As the report noted, the American taxpayer paid $71 for a metal pin that should cost just 4 cents, $644.75 for a small gear smaller than a dime that sells for $12.50, more than 55,100% increase in price. $1,678.61 for another tiny part, also smaller than a dime. That could have been brought with DOD for $71.71. A 21,000% increase. $71.01 for a straight thin metal pin that DOD had on hand, unused by tens of thousands for 4 cents, an increase of over 177,000%. That price gouging has become an accepted form of corruption within the American military empire. Is a sad statement on how little control we the people have over our runaway government. Mind you, this isn't just corrupt behavior. It's deadly, downright immoral behavior. Americans have thus far allowed themselves to be spoon-fed a steady diet of pro-war propaganda that keeps them content to wave flags with patriotic fervor and less inclined to look too closely at the mounting body counts, the ruined lives, the ravaged countries, the blowback arising from ill-advised targeted drone killings and bombing campaigns in foreign lands, or the transformation of our own homeland into a war zone. That needs to change. The U.S. government is not making the world any safer. It's making the world more dangerous. It is an estimate that the U.S. military drops a bomb somewhere in the world every 12 minutes. Since 9/11, the United States government has directly contributed to the deaths of around 500,000 human beings. Every one of those deaths was paid with taxpayer funds. The U.S. government is not making America any safer, as exposing American citizens to alarming levels of blowback, a CIA term referring to the unintended consequences of the U.S. government's international activities. Chalmers Johnson, a former CIA consultant, repeatedly warned that America's use of its military to gain power over the global economy would result in devastating blowback. That's a good book, folks. You got to check it out. Go buy it and keep it on your shelves and show it to those neocon sympathizers that. The 9/11 attacks were blowback. The Boston Marathon bombing was blowback. The attempted Times Square bomber was blowback. The Fort Hood shooter in a major in the U.S. Army was blowback. And we could even add the naval station in Pensacola, Florida. The same. The assassination of Iran General Qasem Soleimani by U.S. military drone strike will, I fear, spur yet more blowback against the American people. The Warhawks' militarization of America, bringing home the spoils of war, the military tanks, grenade launchers, Kevlar helmets, assault rifles, gas masks, ammunition, battery rams, night vision binoculars, etc., and handing them over to local police, thereby turning America into a battlefield, is also blowback. God bless Homeland Security, right? James Madison was right. No nation could preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare. As Madison explained, of all enemies to public liberty, war is perhaps the most to be dreaded because it comprises and develops the germ of every other. War is the parent of armies. From these proceed debts and taxes, known instruments for bringing the many under the domination of the few. We are seeing this play out before our eyes. But as long as you watch your sports, they're free. The government is destabilizing the economy, destroying the national infrastructure through neglect and lack of resources, and turning taxpayer dollars into blood money with its endless wars, drone strikes, and mounting death tolls. Clearly, our national priorities are in desperate need of an overhauling. At the height of its power, even the mighty Roman Empire could not stare down a collapsing economy and a burgeoning military. Prolonged periods of war and false economic prosperity is largely led to its demise, as historian Chalmers Johnson predicts. Here's what he has to say. The fate of previous democratic empires suggests that such a conflict is unsustainable and will be resolved in one or two ways. Rome attempted to keep its empire and lost its democracy. Britain chose to remain democratic and in the process let go its empire. Intentionally or not, the people of the United States already are well embarked upon the course of the non-democratic empire. This is the unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex that President Dwight Eisenhower warned us more than 50 years ago not to let endanger our liberties or democratic processes. Eisenhower, who served as the supreme commander of the Allied forces in Europe during World War II, was alarmed by the rise of the profit-driven war machine that emerged following the war, one that, in order to perpetuate itself, would have to keep waging war. We failed to heed his warning. As I make it clear in my book, Battlefield America, The War on the American People, there is not much time time left before we reach the 0 hour. It's time to stop policing the globe, end these wars without end, and bring the troops home before it's too late. He is absolutely correct. How long will people realize we have to end the empire? No more talk, but actions. Nullification 2020 would be a great thing to do, folks. Nullify the empire. Condemn it. Defecate on it. And send it back to them in a box. Let those parasites that love war so much, put them on the front line and see how tough they are. I do consider this blasphemy. And I recall a lot of my friends from September 11th, I told them, better pay attention. Don't fall for the hype and hoopla. The war on terror is a conflict against its people. Just like the drug war. Same term, different package. It's time to bring our troops home. Support the Defender Republic with no exceptions. And thank you, Mr. Whitehead. You can donate money to them as well on Rutherford.org. I will put the link up for this article. And I recommend you folks read and share. What's cool about his website, there's a great amount of information. And you can relate to all the people you care for. Alright, well, we'll do one more here. This came out yesterday as well from 10th Amendment Center. Actually by iPrivate. Yeah, the website. It says here, America ranks as the 4th worst abuser of biometric privacy in the world. Does anyone really believe America is still the land of the free? Since 9/11, DHS, the FBI, the CIA, and countless other alphabet soup agencies have turned the United States into a public surveillance monstrosity. In 19 years, one terrorist attack has done what no one else could have dreamed of: turn America's freedoms into a distant memory. Abusing citizens' rights and privacy use the hallmark of dictatorship and police states like the CCCP, or North Korea. We can even say National Socialist Germany. Burn the Reichstag. A recent study conducted by Biometric related 50 countries from the best to worst at protecting citizens' biometric data. Citizens found that America is one of the world's worst abusers of citizens' biometric privacy, while China, topping the list, perhaps doesn't come as too much of a surprise. Residents of land travelers travelers to other countries may be surprised and concerned at the extent of biometric information that is being collected on them and what is happening afterward. This is really should not come as a surprise because earlier, I already said that, excuse me. Last week, I wrote an article explaining how 2019 will go down as the year that the facial recognition and corporate surveillance became commonplace in America. Comparitech's recent study on biometric privacy compared on 50 countries collected and used data to identify innocent people. Many countries collect travelers' biometric data, often through visas, biometric checks at airports. Every country we study is using biometrics for bank accounts, e.g. fingerprints to access online app data, and for confirmed identities with the banks themselves. Despite many countries recognizing biometric data as sensitive, increased biometric use as widely accepted, facial recognition CCTV is being implemented in a large number of countries, or at least being tested. EU countries scored better overall than non-EU countries due to GDPR regulations protecting the use of biometrics in the workplace to some extent. Let me see if I can get this up here. But I know China, Indonesia, Pakistan, U.S., and a few other countries in the bottom here. U.S. is ranked number 4. Ain't that great? Land of the free and the home of the brave. Come on, folks. Long as I give them my freedom for security, long as I got my football, I am free. All right. Respect the flag, but pull down your pants. Ain't that great? Biometric warns these 5 countries show a concerned lack of regard for privacy of people biometric data. That's right. The land of the free has become the land of the surveilled and tracked. How can that be used? You ask. How can that be, you ask? According to Biometric, the United States scores highly in most areas due to having biometric in passports, ID cards, and bank accounts, having a biometric voting system, optical scan equipment used in a large number of states, not having a specific law to protect citizens' biometrics. While there is a handful of state laws that protect states' residents' biometrics, as can be seen in our state privacy study, this does not leave many U.S. citizens' biometrics exposed, as there is no federal law in place. Implementing the widespread use of facial recognition cameras with law enforcement pushing for further use in the identification of criminals. For example, the FBI and ICE have recently been criticized due to their use of facial recognition technology to scan drivers' license photos without gaining the citizens' consent beforehand. Equally, some city-level bans have been put in place with San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, and Somerville, banning government use of facial recognition technology. The growing use of biometrics in the workplace. Many companies use employees' biometric for certain actions, using a fingerprint to gain access to a work computer. Again, some state laws offer a little more protection, but this still leaves many employees' biometrics exposed. Fingerprints being required for most American visas, and everyone's fingerprints being collected upon entry to the country. And I remember they did that in September. After September 11th, they had people in Saudi Arabia be fingerprinted. And I'm like, oh my goodness, welcome to 1984. Now we'll proceed here. Curiously, Biometric failed to elaborate on DHS's National Real ID program, which forces everyone to provide biometric information to drive in or fly in America. That they include Real ID in the study, it is my opinion that America would be only second to China in abusing citizens' biometric privacy. The other country listed in the top 10 worst abusers of citizens' biometric privacy rights, India, South Africa, Brazil, Nigeria, and Argentina, are all countries one might expect to be in or near the top, but a neighbor to America north is also one of the worst, Canada. As I mentioned earlier, the Western world used 9/11 as an excuse to abuse citizens' privacy rights, and sadly, Canada is no exception. So all you folks want to leave America and go to Canada? Go and trap yourselves. That's how it is. That country like Canada and the United States, once bastions of a free society, and now near mirror images of the surveillance states like China, Malaysia, Pakistan, India, the Philippines, and Taiwan is horrifying. The Carnegie Endowment for Peace's AI Global Surveillance Global Surveillance Index warned that the AI surveillance is being used by 176 countries to track individuals. As the spread of the AI surveillance continues unabated, is used by repressive regimes to engineer crackdowns against targeted populations has always sounded alarm bells. And hopefully, this is what you will take away from this story. Our government increasingly uses biometrics and AI surveillance to track everyone. My oh my. It's one of the areas, folks, have to see things bigger. They never attacked us in 9/11 because of our freedoms. That's the biggest lie in the book. They want to make excuses for everyone. The real idea is a joke from the very beginning. And remember too, my friends, every high-tech gadget has a flaw. I say, abuse it. Compromise it. You say it can't be done? Damn right it can. But I know for a fact, when this all crumbles, we can laugh at them. We don't need them. They need us. Without us, they're nothing. That's why Jefferson said it the best. When the people fear the government, it's tyranny. But when the government fears people, it's freedom. Which road you want to take? I know what I like. And hopefully everyone else can emulate that. So yes to freedom, no to tyranny, and defy the New World Order one way or the other. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. I shall leave the footnotes of this episode on my Spreaker page. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.